My wife was breathtakingly beautiful, one of the most stunning women one could ever lay eyes on. But because of her beauty, an unsettling fear constantly gnawed at me. I was always afraid that someone might cast an envious eye on her, try to lure her away, or worse, win her over. I kept a close watch on her, showering her with love and attention so she would never feel neglected or seek affection elsewhere. Yet deep down, an inexplicable dread had settled within me from the very beginning of our marriage. The thought of having such a beautiful wife felt like both a blessing and a curse. Wherever we went, eyes followed her. Sometimes I even wished she wasn't so breathtakingly attractive. Perhaps then I wouldn't feel so anxious all the time. Lost in these thoughts, I reached home, not realizing how quickly time had passed. It was evening when I stepped inside, and just as I did, my phone rang. Seeing my friend's name on the screen, I picked up. His voice came through, cheerful as ever. "Hey, I've planned my sister's wedding for tonight. You both must come." I was taken aback. "Tonight? That's quite sudden," I replied. He laughed and explained, "The groom is leaving for abroad in 2 days, and he wanted the wedding done before he leaves. You remember how much you praised this family?" I looked into them. They're really great people. There was no reason to delay. His words reassured me, but another worry crept into my mind, getting to his house. It was quite far, and by the time we reached, it would be late. "Can't you postpone it until tomorrow?" I suggested. "No way," he insisted. "Tonight it is, and you must come." He ended the call before I could argue further. Sighing, I headed to my room. As I entered, I saw my wife standing in front of the mirror, smiling to herself. Seeing her so happy made me feel at ease. She rarely smiled, and when she did, she looked even more beautiful. "What's making you smile like that?" I asked playfully. She blushed, looking down shyly. "I was just thinking about you." I knew exactly what she meant, but there was no time to indulge her desires now. I was already late. Instead of moving closer, I bent down to take off my shoes. I could sense her eyes on me, puzzled and slightly disappointed. "No need to be surprised," I said with a smirk. "I'll make time for you later tonight. For now, get ready." She looked at me with confusion. "Where are we going?" I explained about my friend's sister's sudden wedding, and as expected, she was just as surprised as I had been. "Why the rush?" she asked, frowning. "That's their decision," I shrugged. "We can't question it now." Without further argument, she hurried into the bathroom to freshen up while I quickly changed into my clothes. When she emerged dressed elegantly, I couldn't help but smile. But behind that smile, the same lingering fear crept into my mind. Her beauty, her charm. As we prepared to leave, I felt an uneasiness settle in my chest, like an invisible shadow lurking over us, whispering that something wasn't quite right. And deep inside, I knew tonight would not be just another ordinary night. My wife looked absolutely stunning that evening, so breathtakingly beautiful that anyone who laid eyes on her would be captivated at first glance. And that was exactly what worried me the most. The fear that someone somewhere might try to steal her away haunted me like a shadow. I was just an ordinary-looking man, and deep down I always wondered, was I really enough for her? She often reassured me, whispering sweet words, "As long as you're with me, I'll never look at anyone else." Yet, an unsettling doubt remained lodged in my heart. I ushered her into the car, and we set off for my friend's sister's wedding. As we arrived at the venue and stepped inside, a strange sensation crept over me, a heavy, burning gaze drilling into my back. I turned slowly, and there he was, an old enemy. Our eyes locked, and I could feel the tension thickening between us like an invisible storm brewing. He wasn't just any enemy. He was the man who once desired my wife, the man who had fought tooth and nail to have her. Our rivalry ran deep, rooted in the very moment I had proposed to my wife before he could. He had tried everything to stop me, to make me step back, but I was too deeply in love to surrender. Since that day, enmity burned between us like an unquenchable fire. He didn't take his eyes off my wife, his gaze lingering too long, making my blood boil. Instinctively, I moved to shield her, but before I could say anything, she walked right toward his wife with a bright smile. I clenched my fists. Why does she always do the exact opposite of what I want? Left with no choice, I followed her. My rival stood tall, watching me with an unnerving smile. He hadn't changed, still cunning, still dangerous. His wife, unaware of our past, innocently asked, "Is something wrong between you two?" Before I could respond, he suddenly pulled me into an embrace. I froze. I never expected this. And then, leaning in close, he whispered in my ear, his voice dripping with menace, "I'll take back what's mine. Soon." The words sent a cold shiver down my spine. My fists clenched tighter, my pulse racing with fury. Before I could push him away, he stepped back, grinning casually and asking about my well-being as if nothing had happened. My wife, sensing my anger, gently touched my arm, trying to calm me. I glanced at her, the concern in her eyes momentarily easing my rage. Without a word, I pulled her aside and sternly warned her to stay away from his wife. She looked at me, eyes filled with guilt, and nodded. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I won't give you any reason to complain again." Her quick apology surprised me. I expected resistance, but instead, she surrendered too easily. A nagging thought clawed at my mind. Was she hiding something? Just then, my friend, the groom's brother, appeared and wrapped me in a warm hug, breaking the moment of tension. "I'm so glad you made it," he beamed, and then turned to my wife, greeting her with a handshake. I watched, feeling a sharp pang of discomfort as their hands met. It wasn't jealousy, at least that's what I told myself. In their culture, such greetings were normal. But what unsettled me was how effortlessly she responded, without hesitation, without a second thought. Was I overthinking everything, or was there something lurking beneath the surface that I had failed to see? The evening wore on, but the unease inside me never left. My eyes kept darting toward my old rival, who stood across the room, sipping his drink, smirking at me from time to time. He was up to something, I could feel it. And I had a feeling tonight wasn't just about a wedding. It was about something far more dangerous. It was as if everything was perfectly normal for my wife. She avoided my gaze and casually said, "I'm going to check if Sarah is ready." I quickly nodded, giving her permission to leave. As soon as she walked away, I felt an unsettling presence beside me. Arsalan. He leaned in and whispered with a smirk, "You're really lucky to have such a beautiful wife." I turned sharply toward him, studying his face. There was a strange glint in his eyes, something I couldn't quite place. Suddenly, an uncomfortable thought crept into my mind. Why does it feel like my friends are paying too much attention to my wife tonight? Trying to mask my unease, I forced a smile and replied, "You should get married too." "I'm sure you'll find someone just as beautiful." Arsalan shook his head with a laugh. "I don't think I'm as lucky as you." His words didn't sit well with me. For the first time in my life, I felt hesitant talking about my wife. There was something unsettling in the way he admired her, too openly, too boldly. I tried steering the conversation elsewhere, but Arsalan didn't seem interested. He kept bringing my wife into the discussion, as if testing my patience. After a while, I excused myself and went to check on my wife. As I approached the room, the sight that greeted me froze me in place. There she was, pressed against the wall with Kamran standing inches away from her, his face twisted with anger. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Before I could react, my wife shoved him backward and bolted out of the room. I stood rooted to the spot, my fists clenching involuntarily. Kamran turned toward me, his lips curling into a smug smile. Casually wiping his hands, he said, "I was just asking her if she still has feelings for me." Everything went black. Without thinking, I swung my fist with all my might, connecting with his face. Blood spurted from his nose, and he stumbled back in shock. Arsalan rushed in, grabbing me by the shoulders and pulling me away. "What the hell are you doing?" Arsalan yelled, his voice a mix of concern and frustration. "Why are you making a scene?" I glared at him, my rage boiling over. "Because this man won't leave my wife alone. He's been after her since the day we got married, and he's still trying to get close to her." My voice echoed through the room, but Kamran simply stood there, smirking, his eyes taunting me in a way that made my blood run cold. I felt an uncontrollable urge to lash out again, but Arsalan held me back. "I understand how you feel," he said, trying to pacify me. "You don't understand anything," I spat back. "No one does. You're all just here to watch the drama unfold. If you've brought me here just to humiliate me, I'm leaving right now. I turned to storm out, but Arsalan grabbed my arm again, his grip tightening. Look, getting angry won't solve anything, he said. And as for Kamran, he just wanted to talk. What's the harm in that? I stared at him, disbelief written all over my face. Was he really defending Kamran? Arsalan had been my closest friend for over 10 years. He should have been standing by my side, but tonight felt like the tables had turned. Kamran, still standing in the corner, wiped the blood from his nose, smiling through it all. That smile sent a sinister chill down my spine. Something wasn't right. I felt like I was being played, trapped in a web I couldn't quite understand yet. But one thing was certain. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. His shamelessness ignited a rage within me. I wanted nothing more than to end him right then and there. Before I could act, however, Kamran's wife appeared out of nowhere. She gasped in horror when she saw the blood trickling from his nose and rushed to his side. "What happened to you?" she asked, her voice trembling with concern. Kamran glanced at me briefly, a sinister smile tugging at his lips. Then in a tone colder than I had expected, he said, "Nothing. It was just a little misunderstanding between brothers. Don't worry about it." His words were sharp, commanding, as if he wanted her gone immediately. There was something unnerving in the way he spoke to his wife, harsh and dismissive. It made my blood boil even more. At the very least, he should have had the decency not to speak to his wife like that in front of everyone. But who could explain anything to Kamran? He had always been a man who lived by his own twisted rules. His wife, embarrassed and confused, nodded and hurried away. I stepped forward, my voice laced with warning. "Stay away from my wife, Kamran. If you ever try to get close to her again, I swear you'll regret it." His smirk deepened, his eyes gleaming with amusement. "Stop me if you can," he whispered mockingly before walking away. Fury boiled inside me. In frustration, I slammed my fist against the wall, the sharp sting reminding me of my own helplessness. Blood trickled from my knuckles, but the pain did nothing to calm the storm raging within. Arsalan appeared by my side, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You're overthinking this," he said in his usual calm voice. "Kamran can't do anything. Your wife isn't a fool. She won't fall for his tricks." He was right, but deep down, I knew my fears were not baseless. I knew my wife too well. She was easily drawn to beauty and charm, and Kamran had plenty of both. He had a magnetic pull, and women flocked to him effortlessly. I had once caught my wife stealing a glance at Arsalan before, and it had shaken me to my core. When I confronted her about it later, she had laughed it off, dismissing it as my paranoia. "You're imagining things," she had said, with a nervous smile, shaking her head. But even then, doubt had festered in my mind. Despite my wealth and power, there were things that money couldn't buy: love, loyalty, trust. My father's business had made me a wealthy man. Our land in the countryside brought in a fortune every month. My wife lived in luxury, spending money freely, without a care in the world. I never questioned her expenses or asked for accountability. But deep down, I feared, was it my wealth she loved, or was it me? My friends, on the other hand, were nowhere near my financial standing. Arsalan's brothers sent him money from abroad, keeping him afloat, but Kamran had nothing but his looks and his arrogance. It often amused me how he carried himself as if he owned the world when, in reality, he couldn't afford even a fraction of what I provided my wife. And yet, here he was, openly eyeing my wife, taunting me with his presence. Tonight, however, was different. It wasn't just a lingering glance. He had crossed a line. He had dared to touch her, to speak to her, and that was something I could not tolerate. I clenched my fists once more, my mind spinning with thoughts. Was I being too possessive, or was something truly off? Kamran's audacity, my wife's unusual silence, and Arsalan's unsettling neutrality were all pieces of a puzzle I wasn't ready to face. I could sense it. Something was happening right under my nose, and if I didn't act soon, it might be too late. As I stood outside, lost in my thoughts, I suddenly felt someone's presence beside me. Turning my head, I was startled to see Kamran's wife, Sobia, standing there, staring ahead with a troubled expression. I was puzzled. Why had she come to stand next to me? Before I could ask, she broke the silence. "How long have you known Kamran?" she asked in a low, trembling voice. I took a deep breath and replied, since our university days. Tears shimmered in her eyes, and I felt a pang of unease. I had always considered women to be Allah's most delicate and precious creation, whether they were strangers, sisters, or my own wife. Seeing them cry was something I could never tolerate. Seeing her distress, I couldn't help but ask, what's wrong, Sobia? Why are you crying? Is something troubling you? She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the ground. I don't know how to say this. Sensing her discomfort, I spoke gently. You don't need to be afraid or hesitate. If there's something bothering you, you can tell me. I'll do everything I can to help, despite the fact that she was the wife of my greatest rival. At that moment, she seemed like a helpless woman in need. My moral conscience didn't allow me to turn away. After a long pause, she finally said, I need to talk to you about your wife. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I stared at her, bewildered. What do you mean? What about my wife? She exhaled deeply and spoke in a hesitant tone. I know this might upset you, but I've been watching closely, and I think your wife is interested in my husband. My mouth went dry. What was she saying? I looked at her in disbelief. For so long, I had believed Kamran was the one chasing my wife, but now Sobia was suggesting otherwise. My mind refused to accept it. I know this is hard for you to believe, she continued softly, but my instincts have never been wrong. And if you don't believe me, just look for yourself. Following her gaze, my heart sank as I saw my wife, staring at Kamran, not just glancing, watching. A shiver crawled down my spine. Number. This couldn't be true. I shook my head furiously. No, you must be mistaken. There's nothing like that. My wife would never. Sobia smiled faintly, the kind of smile that comes from knowing too much. I understand. You trust your wife, and I don't blame you. But I've told you what I've seen. I can't control my husband, but at least you can control your wife. Please don't let my home fall apart. Her words cut deep. I clenched my jaw and assured her, don't worry, Sobia. Your home will not be ruined. I'll handle this. She gave me a pout to my knowing smile and whispered, I hope so. As she walked away, my heart pounded in my chest. Staying there any longer felt impossible. I stormed inside and grabbed my wife's hand firmly. We're leaving. Now startled, she looked at me in confusion. But the wedding ceremony hasn't even started yet. I don't care, I snapped. We're going home. Without giving her a chance to argue, I pulled her toward the car. As we walked, I noticed something strange. She kept looking back, scanning the crowd. Who was she looking for? And what was she trying to say with those lingering glances? I felt an unsettling knot tighten in my chest, a sinking feeling that something was terribly wrong. As we drove away in silence, one thought consumed me. Had I been blind all along? Look straight ahead and get in the car, I ordered angrily. My wife, without a word, obeyed and sat inside. The journey was long, and soon night fell over us like a thick, suffocating blanket. Suddenly, the car jolted violently and came to an abrupt stop. Before I could even step out to check, 4 men emerged from the darkness. They were armed. I tried to fight back, but I was no match for them. They beat me mercilessly, leaving me bruised and writhing on the ground, gasping for breath. I could barely move. I watched helplessly as they dragged my wife away, disappearing into the fields nearby. Her screams pierced the night air, sending a chill down my spine. Then suddenly, silence. My heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't let this happen. I had to do something. With every ounce of strength left in me, I pushed myself off the ground and staggered toward the field. They had left me thinking I was unconscious, but I was very much awake. I fumbled for my phone and quickly dialed the police, whispering my location. As I approached the darkened area where they had taken her, I overheard voices, and what I heard made my blood run cold. They weren't strangers. They were my so-called friends, Kamran and Arsalan. Kamran, the man who had always desired my wife, and Arsalan, the friend I trusted the most. Their conversation revealed everything. Arsalan had orchestrated the entire plan, kidnapping my wife and demanding ransom. But that wasn't all. Kamran's price for helping? My wife. They were discussing who would take her first, who would own her. I couldn't believe it. The woman I loved, the one I trusted with my life, had been a part of this all along. The whispers, the stolen glances, the unexplained absences, it all made sense now. She was in on it. I couldn't stay any longer. My feet moved backward, quietly retreating from the horrifying scene. I didn't want her anymore. I somehow managed to get back to the car, despite my injuries, and drove home in complete silence. My heart shattered into a million pieces. When the call came demanding money, I coldly refused. Keep her. She's not worth a single penny. Days later, she returned home, broken, desperate, crying. She fell to her knees, begging for forgiveness, tears streaming down her face. But I couldn't trust her anymore. I gave you everything, love, luxury, devotion, and you betrayed me. With a firm voice. I uttered the words she dreaded. I divorce you. No amount of begging could change my mind. She was never worthy of my love. My heart was hardened, and I wanted no part of the life